Looking forward to 3 consecutive games this week against good opponents. Unfortunately, the 76ers dropped their first one of the week to the Chicago Bulls by 4. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers postgame show here on this Monday night alongside Derek Bodner. I'm Devon Givens. We'll be joined by Kyle Neubeck a little bit later on as he sifts through all the words that are said by the players and the coaches during the postgame press conferences, talking about this loss to the Chicago Bulls, 108-104. Sixers now 18-8, have their 6-game win streak snapped, and a lot to discuss in this one as just 2 players registered double-figure scoring on the evening. Derek, what's going on, man?
Not much. That was a tough one. That was a tough one. Even
in the end, they had a chance.
Yeah.
But it was a tough one the way that they finished. And Kelly Oubre had an opportunity to tie it up at 105-105. He missed the free. Well, pardon me. Actually, they scored later on with a three-pointer, and Kelly Oubre had an opportunity to cut the lead to 2. And with that, he missed the free throw, and they were down 1. They hit a three-pointer. It was 105-104.
Yeah.
And right there, you're like, they dropped an opportunity right there.
Yeah, and look, I mean, this was a game where in the first half specifically, what did Embiid end up in the first half there? I think he had like 24 on like 8 for 13. I have these stats somewhere in my notes. But the Sixers, I think, as the non-Embiid Sixers had like 21 on 9 of 27 shooting, I think was the number. And it was a game where Embiid was playing great, but nobody else really showed up. And I thought in the first half, Maxey specifically struggled with some of the Bulls' perimeter defenders, Caruso specifically, but Carter a little bit as well. He got it going there a little bit in the second half. But nobody else throughout the game was a consistent source of offense. And, you know, Tobias Harris, 3 points on 3 shots in 31 minutes. You need more from him. You didn't have Marcus Morris. He was out for an illness. You didn't have Batum down the stretch. He had a hamstring. And nobody truly had it going. And, you know, the Sixers then coupled that with they weren't getting easy buckets. I think the Bulls went 20 minutes without committing a turnover on a night where you don't have a consistent, reliable source of offense outside of Joel Embiid and outside of Tyrese Maxey. You need to generate some easy buckets. They didn't really do that. It was a very, very frustrating. And on top of that, they missed some open threes, some threes that they normally make. They were outshot from the three-point line by a Chicago team that doesn't really thrive on three-point shooting. And you don't want to read too much into it. Like, they did just come off of a 6-game winning streak. They came off of a stretch. I think I saw, and I didn't look this up, so apologies if it's wrong, but I think they saw that was the largest combined point differential in a 5-game stretch in NBA history. So you're going to have off nights. And this isn't exactly a great Chicago team, but they're a team now that I think has won 6 of their last 9 games here without Zach LaVine. They're playing better basketball. They're still not a great team. They're a winnable game. Games like this happen, but boy, it was tough to watch at times. And then you have, like, this was just a game where it seemed like one run followed another run. You know, I think the Sixers had my notes are a mess. I think the Sixers had like a 22-8 run or something there. And then the Bulls came right back and a 10-0 run. It was real back and forth, and the Sixers just never had a chance to really get it going. And still, despite all that, Tyrese Maxey hits that great 3 to pull it within 1. They have a chance. Tough foul call on Tobias Harris. They got him in the air. DeRozan did, and then Embiid had he lost the ball on the way up there on a chance to tie it. It was just a frustrating game, but I think it's probably one that I don't want to read too much into.
No, I don't want to read too much into it either. To your question, again, in the first half, 23 points for Embiid in 19 minutes and 24 seconds, 8 of 14 with 7 rebounds, 1 block shot. He did have 4 turnovers in the first half, something that he's been pretty good on, protecting the basketball. Did not do that tonight. And Joe Sox jumped in on the chat there and said he didn't see the game, so he need us to break it down, Derek, so we need to break it down. And I think, Derek laid out a lot of important things there because just 2 players, again, scoring in double figures. Maxey finished with 29, Embiid 40, 14, and 6 on this evening. Maxey with 29. No other player scored in double figures tonight, and that cannot happen. Talking about the runs, I saw it on television. We always speak about it. Basketball is a game of runs. Looking at the television broadcast at the end of the game before we walked into the studio, Derek, they had 6 different runs registered by both the Bulls and the Sixers on the screen, and that's what it was. It really was. The Sixers jumped out to a 12-2 advantage. They were up by 12 2 different times early on. Then the Bulls turned it around, finishing with a 25-24 lead after 1. They ended up with a 22-2 run on the 76ers, and that will do you in right there. Especially when you see it again. You get up early and you fall back a little bit, but this team is different. We've been talking about them when discussing Zach LaVine in particular, about how the Bulls were really floundering early on with him on the floor, but once he stepped away, they started playing much better basketball. Kobe White playing like a really, really a guy who's trying to take that point guard spot and never give it back, even if and when you hope as a fan Lonzo Ball comes back and plays basketball. He's playing out of his mind. He almost had a triple-double tonight, hit some big shots tonight for the Chicago Bulls, but they've been playing some good basketball. So to take them lightly, I don't know if they did that. You have to give credit to the opponent, because they never just laid down and let the Sixers do what they've been doing against the really bad opponents over the past 2 weeks, and they did not do that. So the Sixers had to scratch and claw and fight for everything, and to not really get any other production from anyone else on the team was a little annoying watching the game, because as Derek said, this was a tough one. But to see the lack of aggression from some of the players, seeing Tobias Harris not attack enough out there on the floor when he had the basketball, instead kicking the ball out. And I thought, after the last two outings, him playing better. Yes, Patrick Williams is a long 6'9", 6'10" wing guy, younger, can move his feet, can keep up with Tobias Harris, can cut off those driving lanes, can use that length to really challenge those pull-up jumpers or even close out on those three-pointers to make Tobias Harris think about it. I thought he was going to be a little more aggressive tonight, and I didn't see enough of that. Nick Batum had some open shots that he missed early on before exiting because of the hamstring injury. DeAnthony Melton had some pretty good looks, not making those shots. Same thing for Kelly Oubre. He had some really good looks once he came into the game. You saw some really staggering of the offense there when the second unit came in. Patrick Beverley is your other guy trying to get you shots. And as good as he has been, that's not really his role. So they did. And all kidding aside, when we make the jokes about how important Marcus Morris has been over the past couple of weeks, you see the difference, I guess, because Nick Nurse even talked about it last week, that he is a guy that knows how to score. And when you do miss that and you ask Robert Covington and even Daniel House to come in to try to clean up and take up some of that responsibility when he's not there, and Tyrese Maxey struggling early on against that perimeter defense of both Carter and Caruso, you can see where, and even Ayo Dosunmu was playing up on him, using that length, using him as a starter tonight in the backcourt, really giving Tyrese Maxey problems. He figured it out in the second half, but a lot of issues there that we saw early on in the game to allow the Bulls to come in, the struggles on the offensive end for the Sixers not naming Embiid, and that's where we are tonight.
Yeah, but look, I don't want to focus too much on even like asking like Covington trying to expand his role. How does Tobias Harris only end up with 3 shots? Like, yeah, you have a scorer in Marcus Morris out of the lineup. You need your other guys to step up. Harris to just completely defer, take 3 shots total, one three-pointer. Melton took all of 5 shots. Like, you needed some of those players to step up so that you're not asking that second unit. You know, when you stagger Tobias Harris to play with some bench players, he needs to be more aggressive. So you're not asking Patrick Beverley to sit there and try to generate offense or create offense off the bounce. So you're not relying on Paul. Paul Reed was your third leading scorer today with 8 points. It was just, and Kelly Oubre was off. Like, he had some pretty good looks. At times, I thought at times in the first half, there were a couple possessions where he took some early jumpers he didn't need to. But overall, I thought he got some pretty good looks and some pretty good baseline cuts. Just didn't really convert on very many of them. When he has an off night, you just needed somebody else to step up. You're paying Tobias Harris $40 million to be that third scorer. And I think Tobias had a couple of bounce-back games here over the last couple. Today was a real down one. And he had some good moments defensively. And that call-up, I'm sure we'll get to at some point, was questionable. You know, whenever you leave your feet on a pump fake, you're leaving yourself open to the ref making that call. And I did think he was, drifting forward a little bit. So you're going to lose that call more often than not. But I thought he had some good moments defensively. You just need him to be aggressive. And he had one sort of duck in post up early on. You thought, all right, maybe he will get going. And then he just wasn't there.
Yeah, because he hit that early 3. Yeah. And then he hit another shot.
And it was a quick 3, too.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing you think.
It's the thing you and Kyle have been asking for.
It's the kind of thing you see early on. You go, all right, maybe this is going to be a good Tobias night. And then he just disappeared.
He absolutely did. So we want to get everybody in here as much as possible here tonight. So make sure you check in with us. We do have a super chat from our good friend Bernard McCoy. He says, y'all killed me last time for the, quote, not impressed, end quote, comment. And B got tired again in the last shot. Should have been a dagger 3 by Maxey. That's Bernard checking in. And Bernard, I love when you jump in. As much as we love you, after one game.
Why are we doing this?
Why are we? That.
You had one player
Go ahead and live, man.
The
Go
only
ahead.
player
You
who
got it.
showed up for the entirety of the game, and we're going to try to I told you so on that. Like, he had 40 and 14, 6 assists. He was the only one who showed up in the first half. Maxey joined him in the second half, but he was the only reason you were in that game. Why are we doing I told you so on Joel Embiid, a guy who's probably the front runner for MVP, a guy who just had a completely dominant and absurd 6-game stretch? Why? What does that have to do with Tobias Harris taking 3 shots? And don't tell me it's because Embiid took 28. No, Tobias Harris had the ball and had opportunities. Why are we doing this? Why are some people so excited to say, I told you so, on a guy who's probably a top, certainly right now the front runner for MVP, and probably a top 3 to 5 player?
Listen,
I just don't get it.
I disagree with it. I'm with Derek on this one, Bernard. But again,
we thank you for the super
I'm
chat.
going to let you live with that one. You can have that one. You can enjoy it and point that out because, go for it. We still have a whole bunch of games left on the season to play. What do we have? Still about 56 games to play on the year. So go ahead. I'm going to let you live. Have at it, man. We appreciate the donation and always checking in.
He's averaging 34 per night and passing the ball better than he ever has.
Yeah.
It's like you're just sitting here waiting for a loss so you can try to say you were right. It's very strange.
Yeah,
I don't mean just you, Bernard. Like, there's a lot of people who are like that, especially in Philly. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Furious jumps in with another donation. We appreciate it on the super chat. At some point, have to realize we need another score. Joel Embiid's points per game will drop by 6 to 8 in the playoffs. What we can count on is Joel's defense intensity to pick up. Trust that and get another score. And look, we never said that they didn't need another scorer to help out. We always said Maxey, though, could be good enough to do so. He gave you 29. So if you're looking at 6 to 8 to drop, and he gave you, what is he averaging? 25.8, I believe, Tyrese Maxey is. So I don't think his playoff average would drop to 20. If anything, maybe 22, 23. Embiid, if you're looking at it Furious in that way, and you say his 33, you're going to drop to 25 to 27. That's what we've been talking about for the regular season, though. And if that is the case and his defense is still there, his rebounding is still there as well, but he's getting good looks, he's healthy going into the playoffs, and he's giving you good numbers overall, good overall production in the 40 minutes that he's playing, I don't mind if that happens. The question is, will you get the scoring from if the team remains as such? Harris, Oubre, Melton still hitting his shots. Morris coming off the bench as well with Oubre if he is still part of the team. If you're getting that production, that's one thing. But if you're looking to add that third scorer potentially, if you don't trust Tobias Harris, then I get where you're going, Furious, because you still need people to score in the postseason. Yeah. Defense is going to pick up on the other side, and you need players that can get it done in that way.
And to his point, I wrote something similar over at allphly.com for our diehard subscribers. I have a weekly likes and dislike column where I noted, basically I was talking about their offense, and their offense was, I think, second in the league at that point, and their defense was, like, I think somewhere around 15th. And I said, despite this discrepancy, and the offense has been extremely consistent, and they struggled a little bit here at times in this game, but I don't think I should overshadow the fact that they've pretty much been a second-ranked offense for most of the season. After that last beatdown, they actually moved up to the top-ranked offense in the league, even overtaking the Pacers. Even with all that said, I agree with some of your base points that Joel Embiid's defense is going to pick up in the playoffs, and he's going to cover over a lot of these warts on defense, and he's going to struggle a little more in the playoffs. It would be great to have another option. I agree with that. I don't know in terms of prioritizing exactly where you fall, because there is a lot of the offensive focused players that we were talking about, or at least that are in the rumor mill, they tend to be really, really bad defensively. Mm-hmm. So you have to see who else shakes out, because a lot of the options right now I don't necessarily love. But I think there's certainly something to that you just need a reliable third option. Someone who can run a little offense when Embiid heads to the bench. Someone who can give you another creator from the perimeter for when Maxey has an off night. Just someone who can, switch between different roles offensively depending on what the team needs. I don't think that's crazy. And
Not
exactly where, as we get more information, as we see them go up against top defenses, we can learn a little more about that over the next couple of months. But it is the major question that we will ask ourselves, because we saw them go against one of maybe the defensive options in Caruso here today. Like I said, a lot of the other trade candidates tend to be maybe outside of OG, tend to be offensively focused. You're going to have to pick someone who is imperfect, and what you're willing to live without will be it's a fair question. Even, like I said, coming into this game, they're the number 1 ranked offense in the league. I think some of their struggles here tonight were a little bit fluky. Like they shot, where are they? They shot
3-pointers.
5 for 18 on shots between 4 and 14 feet. That's not going to happen very often. Mm-hmm. That was a little bit unlucky in that regard. They only shot 17 for 28 at the rim, which is well below their season averages. They're going to play better most nights, even noting that Chicago's perimeter defense was really strong. But it would be great just to have another option or two that you really trust.
I have a question for you when we get back, because it's along the lines of the shot selection tonight. Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, etc. We'll get to that in just a second.
First, we want to tell you about Wheelhouse Cards. Wheelhouse is our go-to sports card, gift, and apparel shop in the Delaware Valley. Their motto is cards and community, because a love of sports unites us all. They carry all of your favorite card brands like Topps Chrome Baseball and Mosaic Football, as well as t-shirts, hats, and hoodies from brands like Mitchell & Ness, 47 brand Junk Food Starter, and Shibe Vintage Sports. If you're looking to grade your sports card collection, Wheelhouse offers PSA grading submissions. They also host tons of different family-friendly events and birthday parties every month. Stop into either of their stores in Wayne or Westchester, open 7 days per week at 11 a.m. Use code PHLY and get $10 off any purchase of $25 or more in store. And be sure to give them a follow on Instagram at Wheelhouse Cards.
Hey, after you do that and you're looking for a good game or a good outing some other way, make sure you check out our good friends from Game Time. We've been telling you about them for quite some time now, and they're a great place to go to acquire tickets, not just for, of course, sports, but also music, comedy, theater, as well. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is fast and easy way to buy the tickets for all of those events. With killer deals on the last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for all the fun that you are going to have. Let me tell you about a few things. Flash deals, last-minute tickets, easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. Images of the seat views of where you would like to sit, and your viewing pleasure, of course, as you're watching whatever it is you're watching. Lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection, job loss protection as well. And big game on Wednesday for Philadelphia hosting Minnesota here on the basketball side of things. If you want to be there, this is the place to go. Forget about planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event if that's not there for you. So get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, soccer, hockey, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will in fact credit you 110% of the difference. Snag those tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. All right, the last play offensively where the Sixers had a chance to tie it at 106 after DeMar DeRozan missed one free throw, 106-104. Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, their patented pick-and-roll opportunity. Maxey hit him with a good pass. I thought Embiid rushed it a little bit, and that's why he lost it. A few plays before on the possession, Maxey did not hit him with the pocket pass, tried to drive left, finish at the rim, and he had a tough reverse opportunity. I thought he should have hit Embiid again on the same roll because it was working. That pass to Embiid for that short jumper was working for him, and that roll to finish for the finish at the cup was also working. So maybe that was something that they discussed in a timeout where he had to rush that one. Maxey did with the reverse opportunity against Vucevic and some of those other bigger guys down there. We've seen him finish it before, but just making the right play. And I understood, use the speed, get there, maybe finish at the rim, get the easy, quick 2 points instead of putting Embiid in that tough spot in the middle of the floor. But what did you see on that play? Was it just simply him rushing it, or he just lost it because it just went off his fingertips? Yeah,
I mean, he might have rushed it a little bit, but I think sometimes fluke things happen like that. And if they happen at the last play of the game, we tend to read a lot into it. I thought, look, whenever you get Embiid on a short roll, and it wasn't even really a short roll, it was a pretty deep roll.
It was.
At the last seconds of the game off a design play, like, I'm not going to complain about that. I'm not going to complain about the play call. I'm not going to complain about the decision from Maxey to find him. It just, sometimes it doesn't work out, even when you get in good spots. No, I was okay with the play.
Again, not a complaint from me. I just felt like he rushed it a little bit because he was up against the clock and he really wanted to get a shot up. And those things happen, and that's my point. That those things do just happen. But here's my question that I wanted to lead into, because on the night you had from Joel Embiid finishing with the 40 he took on the evening. Overall, 28 shots, got to the free throw line, making 8 of 9. Tyrese Maxey, he took 11 threes, made 5 of them, 6 made free throws, 9 of 23. 10 shots from Kelly Oubre off the bench. That's the third highest on the team. And as you laid out, Paul Reed was the only other player to finish in double figures. Now, my question, though, is this. Watching the game the way that you did, in the arena, you come back to the studio and you watch it, did you feel like there was more of an emphasis on Embiid to get his shots off and slow down the offense like we've seen in the Doc Rivers-led offense? Or was the passing there and other guys were aggressive enough with the touches that they had and not getting shots off?
I don't actually think Joel Embiid was all that ball dominant today. Like, certainly he got his looks up, but I don't think it necessarily killed the flow of the offense too much. And I think sometimes when players don't take their opportunities, it becomes real easy to then focus on the players who have to bail them out. And I feel like at times Maxey and Embiid were getting the ball on the late clock, having to bail out a lot of indecision from a lot of other players. I think they just needed Tobias Harris to be more aggressive. I think they just needed, even DeAnthony Melton, I thought, passed some open shots. I think they just needed some players to be a little bit more aggressive. And maybe that's why, you have Kelly Oubre. He doesn't usually play 24 a night. He played a pretty good chunk of minutes there. At the very least, he was aggressive. No, I thought a lot of players just passed up some shots. I really don't think the flow of the offense was all that bad. We can certainly nitpick a possession or two here. No, I put it mostly on the role players.
I agree with you. I thought that, as we said at the top, I thought that they were less aggressive when they had the opportunity, the ball swinging to them, touching the basketball. Yes, Embiid got the rock, and with that, typically he will take his time and maybe bleed 5 seconds before he makes a decision of what he wants to do. But I thought the players had the ball in their hands, had opportunities, and simply didn't do anything with it. Therefore, when the ball found Joel Embiid or Tyrese Maxey, they did something with it. And that's where I looked at. But I know that there is a lot of discussion, looking at social media, having discussions, even when they were winning during the 6-game winning streak, where, yes, the ball was moving, he was still getting his assists. And he did have 6 assists tonight. But there's still that discussion out there that he's holding the ball. The guys now around him are now standing. Things are stagnant. So if he's holding the ball, they're not moving, and that's his fault.
Sure, but Kelly wasn't stagnant. Kelly was making those baseline cuts whenever they were there. So if Kelly can do it, why can't anyone else do it? And the problem with Kelly Oubre is he's not a passer, like a complete zero as a passer. So when his shot's not going in, he's not going to provide any real value offensively. But if he can cut, everyone else can cut.
I agree.
Those cutting lanes are still there. I think Embiid was willing to make them. There was just a lack of movement, and even when the ball was swung, there was then a lack of decision-making, a lack of decisiveness. No, I think I put this one mostly on the role players.
I agree. I agree 100% with you. And I saw something earlier, and I wanted to bring it up because I did have in my notes. Messenger said on the chat that Covington missed that layup. That was a game-changing moment. The crowd was ready to explode. The Sixers were ready to go on a run. They were already on a run, and he missed that layup. Great pass. I can't remember who it was from. I want to say it was from because that one was when the reserves were still in there and Embiid wasn't on the floor. Paul Reed was out there for those minutes. And I think it came from Oubre hitting Covington where he drew the attention. Covington cut baseline finally for a good cut, and he just missed a wide open layup. And Covington, we've seen that before in the past. As good as he has been, he still has that in him, putting the ball on the floor, losing it, cutting, missing open layups, things of that nature. Those things happen, and that's why we do look at on a night where Embiid is having a good night like this. Maxey picked it up in the second half. Every possession counts. Every shot matters, especially close to the rim, and you have to make those. He missed that opportunity. That was an easy bunny right there that he just flat out blew.
Yeah.
Flat out blew it.
We did have a super chat earlier, and we try to go out of our way. Bubba G-Day, we appreciate it. You're a very regular chatter, so we appreciate that, and we appreciate the super chat. But if you have a problem with another writer or the content that they're doing, talk to them. Bring it up to them on Twitter, on social media, what have you. We are not here to debate other writers, really.
Yep, absolutely.
And I'm certainly not going to go up hey, we have a YouTube commenter. Please stop writing about this. It's not a realistic request.
Yeah. Barbara Carroll says, you can't play the Pistons, Wizards, Spurs, etc. Every game does matter.
But they're 18-5 in games that Joel Embiid plays.
Yes.
You're just not gonna go 82-0. I don't don't get it.
What did you think of later in the game because of no Marcus Morris? I imagine this is why it went this way. What did you make of the Embiid, Paul Reed minutes on the floor at the same time?
So it was the first time they've been on the floor together in non-garbage time possessions. So it was the first all year. I was surprised because it's not even like Chicago's like a super great offensive rebounding team. They're not a great offensive team in general. So I was a little surprised. And it's not like what are the Sixers? What was the rebounding differential? I don't think the Sixers got absolutely. They got beat on the glass, but not completely destroyed. You know, I think when that happens, there were two things. First, there was a play where Paul Reed was late on a closeout on a slot three, and that's the kind of thing when you have two bigs on, they're not really used to sort of playing out on the perimeter like that. Then another one where Paul Reed was out on the corner, and rather than get back in transition, he went and crashed the offensive glass. They got a real easy transition bucket and timeout Sixers, and I think Paul Reed was taken out right after that. There's just first of all, I don't love the floor spacing in those lineups, so I've never really been a proponent of seeing them regularly. And I think when you change Paul's role like that, I think it leads to mistakes. And I think there were two pretty big mistakes in a very limited minutes in this game. That would be an adjustment. If you're going to try it out, I almost think, even though I don't like it, I almost think you have to commit to it just because it is a very different role for Paul Reed, and it's going to take some adjustment. And I think you saw that here, where I'm not entirely sure he knew exactly what his role was.
And I don't remember if at that time, Batum had already exited the game for the remainder of the game. But I know I saw three bigs on the floor like that. No, you know what? I believe it was Harris with Reed and Embiid. Oubre was already gone for the night. And I was very curious because we've talked about it, that we hadn't seen a lot of it. And we've been curious, right. Is Nick Nurse going to try some of these different things that we've been waiting for when it comes to Reed and Embiid being on the floor at the same time in that front court? And we saw it. And I agree. He was a little lost at times. And it just didn't work all that well tonight. I hope he doesn't abandon it, but it was clear for me that with both Batum and Morris absent from this at that point, that he wanted to try something. Daniel House got that run early. He had a three-pointer, but we didn't see him again really until for the rest of the game, and that's just where things were on the night. And I was very, very curious of what you thought, what the viewers thought, as Paul Reed was out there for that one. Yeah,
I mean, look, I've never been a big proponent of Paul Reed and Embiid lineups. Like I said, I think the lack of floor spacing, the lack of decision-making, the lack of ball handling, I don't necessarily think all of those downsides are worth the uptick in rebounding. And I think, like I said, if Paul Reed's never going to do it, he's going to make mistakes when he's given a possession or two or three randomly in the middle of a season. So I on the one hand, like I do think it would be better for Paul if you gave him more opportunities to do that. On the other hand, it's tough for me to really be a proponent of that because I don't believe in that pairing. So it's a bit of a tough spot for me.
We want to make sure we let everybody know that tomorrow we have an earlier show tomorrow, beginning at 11:30. We're really looking forward to this one as we head to the Reading Terminal for the Reading Terminal Market Show, live from Reading Terminal. That's presented by Bagels and Company tomorrow. We're hanging out with you Tuesday, December 29th. That's tomorrow at 11:30. We have our full slate on all of our social channels. Follow us at PHLY_sports. Check us out. See what the lineup looks like tomorrow. I believe the Phillies have first shot at 10 o'clock, I believe, tomorrow. Then we run it at 11:30, and then things follow thereafter with the Flyers and the Eagles. And then we have the Eagles later. I mean, the Flyers tomorrow, post-game, as they are getting after it tomorrow as well. So make sure you tune in tomorrow, 10 o'clock start time, live from Reading Terminal. The Phillies, then we're up at 11:30. Flyers, Eagles follow. Post-game with the Flyers back at the studio tomorrow night. Hopefully we have a lot of good food to talk about as well. We have some other things with Embiid conversation, maybe MVP talk, a little Tyrese Maxey conversation, team overall coming off of a loss, some things that we can take from, maybe some press conferences tonight that Kyle will join us later to tell us what the coaches and the players said post-game. So we look forward to that. Hopefully you can come out tomorrow. If you're working in Center City, you're already down there. You might as well come over, get your lunch, hang out with us for a little bit, introduce yourselves, and we'll have a great time at the Reading Terminal tomorrow.
Yeah, Ramich bringing up a good point. The two big lineup might have been an effort by Nick Nurse to prevent Embiid from picking up any more fouls because he got in some foul trouble there in the second half. Could be. But then again, it's not like that was the first game that Joel Embiid's had foul trouble, so it's a little surprising that this was the first time they brought it out all season.
All right. Ian says it'll be there tomorrow. I will be there. Thank you, Ian. We'll hope to see you there tomorrow. Let me ask you a question about Tyrese Maxey, because you brought up earlier where the defensive pressure from, and we already know this, but this is why we talk about Caruso in a positive way, maybe joining the Sixers by the deadline, his defensive acumen, what he does as a connector, as you guys like to say, on the floor. He just knows what to do out there on the floor. Defensively, he was dogging Embiid
fantastic in the first half.
Maxey early. And then when we saw, again, Javon Carter coming in, he got a 3-year deal, good money because he's a good point guard as a backup. And that, where he would hound you for 94 feet. All right, maybe not 94. I'll hound you for 75 feet of the floor to not let you get into your sets, to not let you get your offense rolling. And that was a big reason why Maxey struggled in the first half. What did you make of those two guys with what the coaching staff wanted them to do? I thought they were fantastic early on, really giving him problems.
Yeah, and I want to sort of like have a PSA because I've seen it misspelled a couple times here in the chat. It is Kobe White, not Colby. There's no L. It's pronounced almost exactly like Kobe and Kobe Bryant, just spelled completely differently. Like 75% of the letters are different, but the pronunciation is the same. It is actually short for Jacoby. His middle name, I think, is Jacoby. I think his first name is Alec. But anyway, it is Kobe White, not Colby White.
Yes.
You know, I think this is one of the real benefits and why we were a little bit lukewarm of Zach LaVine. Yeah, he is a tremendous offensive talent. He is a terrible, terrible defender. And when you replace his minutes with, you know, people like Carter, maybe a bump in Caruso's minutes, with Kobe White having more of a chance to shine, you have a better defensive squad. And Carter and Caruso specifically were incredible defensively in the first half. I thought they really changed the tenor of the game off the bench. And Tyrese Maxey did have a real tough time struggling. And you saw, you know, Nick Nurse even have Maxey come off ball a little bit, come running off of some screens a little bit just to get himself free. He had a nice, off-screen three off of a double drag there in the second half to get one of his buckets. But I thought he just needed something to get him going, and bringing him off ball at times helped him do that because he had a tough time shedding those defenders. They were really, really good in a way that the Sixers' point of attack defense lacks. And I'm sure as we get closer to deadline, we will talk about that more because Caruso is one of the names that is pretty consistently linked on the market. I'm not entirely sure what Chicago is going to do because Chicago might be in job preservation mode, and having those kind of players, they haven't really signaled that they're looking for a complete rebuild. So Caruso is someone who you might want to keep around, and the reported price is very high, I think, because of that. But no, they were real good, and Caruso had some tough finishes, some tough layups inside. They were both real good.
Yeah, and look, they didn't even start, right? Ayo Dosunmu was in the backcourt with Kobe White to start the game, and he played, I believe, about 19 minutes where you saw 30 from Alex Caruso. Javon Carter coming in, doing the job that they asked him to do. I thought it was just a really good job coaching of what they were asking their guys to come in and change the complexion of it because of what the Sixers were doing, getting out to that early lead, leading by 12 very early on twice, and then they come in and they just really disrupted things of what Maxey was able to do, and you saw that. So what does that do? Then that puts pressure on everybody else from Melton to Harris to do their job of what we were talking about at the top of the show, to simply ask you to go out there and do your part as that other piece to make sure you take some of the pressure off of both Joel Embiid and, of course, off of DeAnthony Melton with the ball handling, with the shooting. Do those things where you can maybe get Maxey some easier shots with the flow of the offense as the ball is moving, maybe not from just Joel Embiid passing the ball, as a two-man game because he may be holding the ball a little bit too long, but from everyone else making sure that they set those screens. Because, look, they were setting the screens on Alex Caruso. He was just simply doing the right thing by the way he was fighting through them, fighting over the top to make sure that he stayed connected to Maxey on his hip. And even when Maxey did seemingly have a little bit of a step, he may have peeked the other way, and the guy was right back in position to be on his hip to really disrupt what he wanted to do. So we're giving a lot of credit to Chicago, but this is because this is what we're going to see from Maxey later on. We don't want people to panic about, hey, Tyrese Maxey, this is why you need that third scorer, like we saw a little bit earlier in one of the comments. Yes, you still might need that. The guy can still, we think, get it done. But this is the type of pressure that he's going to face in the postseason. And even at the end of the regular season, when things really start to bog down and you're still facing those tough opponents, maybe some positioning from those other teams that they face for playoffs, this is what we're going to see. And he has to be ready to step up to that challenge to make sure that that does not take him out of his game and what he is really good at. Yeah.
And look, I think when you talk about the ramp up in competition for players, there's almost nobody that's tougher on than short scoring guards. And we've talked about this at times in the past about Steph Curry and his ascension and the number of leaps he made over the years. Part of that was just learning how to get to his spots, how to free himself, how to get good looks in a big man's league, or at least a big wings league. And that's not only skill development, but that's also just learning the tricks of the trade. And it is going to be tough on Maxey just because he's never been the focal point in the playoffs before. He's going to be asked a lot of. It's in part why, even if you believe in Tyrese Maxey, you'd love to get some more help, because asking him to be a number 2 on a championship team is a very tough thing for a 23-year-old who is just like I said, just the focal point for the first time in his career. But that's where they are. They really need him to step up and be his 28-year-old version at 23. It was a tough night for him. I like the way he bounced back in the second half. He made some huge threes. I thought he got into the paint at times as well. But it was a very up and down game from him for sure.
No, it really was. And looking at the Sixers tonight, just to be clear, they protected the basketball tonight, only turning the ball 12 times. I thought when Embiid was off the floor, specifically in the second half, I saw our buddy Vince put up earlier when the second unit was in, the ball was moving, Maxey as the main guy. But I also know that while that is true, and that's where they did cut into that lead, I thought Maxey took 3 straight possessions where he didn't pass the ball.
Yeah.
He took 2 tough fadeaways along the baseline. As good as he was in the second half, I thought that the ball movement wasn't there because he was looking to make sure that, hey, we're down 2. They're coming down the floor because there's no protection at the rim. Paul Reed and others weren't protecting the paint the way that we've seen with Embiid out on the floor. They were getting those buckets in the paint. They were hitting their shots. So Maxey took it upon himself to go out there and take kind of, hero shots there for him, where that's a little uncharacteristic of him in a moment like that. But after that, he did, with the connectors of the others, pass the ball. The movement was there. They finished. They got some buckets. They cut into that lead, and Embiid and the rest of the guys came in with just about 6 minutes to play in the fourth quarter. But he did do that. And my point of it is that he also, understanding that, yes, he is the best player on the floor when Embiid is not for the Sixers side, he has to be careful with things like that, because while on the other end, you may feel like we're rolling, certain things are happening, you can't allow things like that to happen when you're taking bad shots. And I brought up the whole point to start off with Embiid out. They were just parading to the paint during that stretch in the fourth quarter with Embiid out. And overall, it was 46-44 in the paint. That doesn't seem like much, but again, it's when it happens. And when it did happen during that stretch and Embiid on the bench, they had no rim protection. It was just a pathway easily getting to the basket and finishing.
Yeah. And like I said, not only that, not only was it a pathway to the basket, but the Sixers didn't force a turnover in 20 consecutive minutes of play. That's a wild stat. And you felt every bit of it. And it impacts you on both ends. Not only is that possessions that you're not gaining, but it's also transition opportunities that you're not getting. It's putting your offense in the half court every trip down the floor. They really could have used an easy bucket or 2 to stem the tide.
I do want to ask this, giving credit what credit is due on the other side. Kobe White, 9 of 17 tonight. He played just a second under 40 minutes tonight. He almost had a triple-double. We mentioned that earlier. 24 points, 9 assists, 8 boards, and just 2 turnovers on the night for Kobe White. Man, he has really surprised me, because after a couple of years, I was like, okay, he can start sometimes, but he's probably a 6-man that can run the offense and still score. He is really turning his career around, at least it looks like right now, where these last couple of months, I think he was like player of the week already once during this stretch. Bulls playing much better. He is looking like a guy that is not looking to give up that starting role anytime soon.
Look, in the 13 games leading up to this one, he was averaging 23.4 points, shooting 50% from the field, and 50.4% from 3 on 9.5 attempts per game. That is a very extended stretch of excellent play. He has stepped up in a way like you. I didn't know he had this in him. And really, how much longer is Zach LaVine out for? He's out for a little bit yet still.
Yeah.
it will. Chicago, if this is true and this is who he is and he has this leap in him, that is a very fortuitous spot for Chicago to be in, because overall I think they're really asset poor and in a bad spot. But that is a great boost in what had otherwise been a really down start to their season.
And if they do that in a way that it could eventually get there, like Derek is talking about, as we've seen, 6 of their last 9, as Derek talked about, on a winning streak, playing very well. Everybody's playing well. Even this tough shooting night tonight from DeMar DeRozan, felt like he got good looks, though. He took good shots.
Yeah.
And he only finished with 15 points on 5 of 15 shooting. Didn't attempt a three-pointer tonight, so everybody, when I was talking about DeMar DeRozan as being one of those guys, you can get on me because he didn't take a three-pointer. That being said, you had, it seems like, again, on their assists, 24 on 42 made baskets. A little lopsided there. Same with the Sixers, 23 on 38. But the team is playing well. And when we're looking at Caruso, maybe even DeRozan, or someone else, if it's Levine still in your eyesight as somebody that you might want the Sixers to go after during the deadline, the way that they're playing right now, if they keep this up and they eventually maybe get to a little bit higher in the standings, you might have to scratch off, folks, Alex Caruso or DeRozan or Levine on that list, or maybe Levine is still going. I saw his name mentioned also potentially with the Sacramento Kings to be a backcourt partner with De'Aaron Fox. If they keep playing this way, they might be a team that can be a little bit annoying in the playoffs as you try to move from that first round into that second, and they give you a really good first round if he continues to play that way and this team plays that way. Patrick Williams also, a decent active night.
Yeah, I mean, look, if there's one good thing for the Bulls, there are a lot of other teams. There's the top of the East, and then there's a whole bunch of teams grouped up. Whether that is, surprisingly, I think Cleveland for a lot of people. But there's, 3 or 4 teams, I think 4 teams with between 15 and 17 losses. So there's certainly, their season's not over, but they do still have a lot of uphill to climb. At what are they now? I think 11 and 17 on the season. There's a lot of teams for them to jump.
3 games this week that we talked about before the Christmas game next Monday. That is tonight with the Bulls, Wednesday, the marquee game, if you will, against the Minnesota Timberwolves, playing very well out in the West. And then you had the Toronto Raptors on Friday. When you looked at the 3, I looked at it and said, go 2-1 this week. We know you just had a tough, easy stretch. Go 2-1. All 3 of them on your home floor. Go 2-1 on your home floor. They dropped this one. And this was actually one that I thought they would win. Maybe defeating Minnesota in a revenge game, losing in Minnesota already earlier in the campaign, and then taking care of maybe losing, dropping, letting it go against Toronto, if you will. They dropped this one. A tough one, as Derek said from the start of the show. 2-1, though, still up there for them as Minnesota gets ready to come in here on Wednesday.
Yeah, and look, Minnesota is not just the best defense in the league, but it's not even really close. Boston is the number 2 ranked defense in the league at 109.4 defensive rating. That's points allowed per 100 possessions. Minnesota's at 107.2, so that's over 2 points per 100 possessions, better than the second ranked defense in the league. They have been playing fantastic basketball, and they don't even really do it they just force you into really tough shots. They're not a super high turnover team. They're about mid-pack in terms of forcing turnovers. They don't let you get to the free throw line. They don't give you easy looks. They're a real fundamentally sound defensive squad, and I think the Sixers, it's going to be a real good test. Because I've noted in the past how consistent this Sixers offense has been throughout the season. Obviously, that was up until tonight's game, but they were pretty much a top 2 or top 3 offense the entire season. They had good success against top 10 defenses with the 4th-ranked offensive rating in the league when playing against top 10 defenses. This will be as big, and the last time they played, and one of those games against the top 10 defense was against Minnesota, where they played without Embiid.
Yep.
This is like you mentioned, a rematch, but a chance to go up against them with their full squad for the first time. This will be a really, really good test.
Minnesota 9-1 over their last 10. Mm-hmm. They defeated the Miami Heat tonight as they sit atop the Western Conference, a 3-game lead right now over the OKC Thunder. 4 games up on the Mavs and the Nuggets, 4.5 on the Kings and the Clippers. This Minnesota team, folks, is pretty darn good. Anthony Edwards, 2 years ago, that was his franchise. It's really his franchise now, without question. And Karl Anthony Towns, to his credit, is not trying to snatch it away anymore. Yeah. He's fallen right into his role as the number 2 guy on a contending team. You can still make the All-Star squad that way because typically you get 2 of those guys in the All-Star game when you are the top team in your conference around that time. That team is really good. They beat the Miami Heat tonight, 112-108. Another just solid game from Edwards with 32 points tonight, 18 from Towns, where you got a double-double. Well, pardon me, you didn't get a double-double. Gobert, 16 boards, 2 block shots. The team is very well constructed. Mike Conley with 12. Jalen McDaniels is back and healthy, as you mentioned. Very, very good defensive player. And 15 off the bench for Naz Reid, who many times we've talked about wanting to steal him from them before he became this player where you thought you can steal him, get him at a low number. Not anymore. That dude should be he could start in this league, I think, as a 5-man, but he's in a really good role with them. So get ready, folks, because this is going to be a good one. This is going to be a good one on Wednesday night.
Yeah, and I mean, like you mentioned, that's on the one hand, I feel like they became the butt of jokes because of the Rudy Gobert trade.
Yes.
Which was just an absurd, ridiculous overpay. I can't believe it happened, but and frankly, it sort of like reset the market on quote-unquote star-level trades.
Drew Holiday for first-round picks.
To an almost impossible degree that you can't even really follow up on. But that does sort of obscure how well the Wolves have done in terms of team building and getting a lot of these draft pick rights. I mean, what was McDaniels as a pick?
He was a second-round pick or late first?
No, late first.
Late first.
But he was pretty late into the 20s, and he signed a really big contract, despite the fact that he averages 9.5 points a game. The reason he got that big contract, he is an incredible defender. He's an active defender. He's a very versatile defender, and he can smother you. And that is just I really enjoy watching them play, actually.
I do too. That's one of the teams that I'm saying when we're done, and if I'm home, I find theirs first. And, well, obviously the other one that I follow first, but the
Sure. Non-family related.
Yeah, non-family related.
Yep.
I go to Minnesota. I go to Oklahoma City to see what they're doing because I like watching those 2 teams. So I'm looking forward to that one.
No, and look, Chris Finch was my preseason pick for Coach of the Year.
Ah. And I thought when they hired him mid-season the way that they did, I thought it was a weak way that they went about it.
Yeah.
But he has turned out to be the right,
He's done real good.
The right one. And I wasn't sure with Conley either, even though we know what he did in Denver. It was more of as soon as he comes in and makes that deal, it's like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, I think maybe the Gobert trade. And look, he's a big part of their defense. You don't want to say otherwise. It was still an overpay. Part of that is just the one of the biggest ways you can rip off a team is find the team with new ownership. They tend to like to make splashy trades, and I think that was part of that as well. But my point with Finch is I expect them to be good. I expect them to be better. In no way did I expect 19-5 and by far and away the best defense in the league. They're not even, like, offensively, they're a mid-pack team. They're nothing special offensively. They are
except for Edwards.
Right, but as a team, they are nothing special offensively. They are at that position where they are at the top of the Western Conference because they have a suffocating, smothering, really consistent defense, and that will be a real tough test.
I also think Kyle's ready for us, before we get to Kyle, the other thing that I think really helped them out, getting rid of D'Angelo Russell and replacing him with Mike Conley.
Yep.
To actually understand his role, run the team, and he's cool with that. So, appreciate everybody checking in. We'll get to some of the guys here on the chat. People coming at Vince, too, for some of his takes on Embiid on the chat. But right now, let's head to the arena, head to the center, site of the Sixers falling tonight by 4 points tonight, 108-104. Our guy, our partner in crime, we'll see him tomorrow, and you will see him tomorrow when you show up at the Reading Terminal. Kyle Neubeck. What's up, Kyle?
Don't threaten the listeners like that.
Oh, threat.
I'm hanging in there, boys.
Happy.
Not their best performance tonight, obviously, and I'm sure most people were watching the Eagles game, so probably a good time for them to slide a game like this in there under the radar.
I guess starting off, what is the status of Nico Batum?
So what we were told by Nick Nurse after the game is that he had complained that it was sore, and the medical staff had advised, let's take the precaution of sitting him for the rest of this game. We don't have much more than that now. I think we're probably going to get more concrete update at some point tomorrow, at least maybe an indication of whether this is going to hold him out for the future, or even just missing a game against Minnesota. But didn't sound great, didn't sound awful either.
I know it was a hamstring.
Yes, it was. I think the team characterized it officially as hamstring tightness was the designation. So I actually think that's what they labeled Joel's thing that he came into the game with, and then he scored 40 points. So hopefully, maybe
Are you predicting a 40-point bomb from Nico on Wednesday?
I am not indeed predicting 40 points from Batum in their next game against the best defense in the league there.
You mentioned that 40-point performance again from Embiid, another strong game, and of course it would look much better in a victory. But, there are some questions out there, once again, holding on to the ball too long, not enough of the others getting the job done because only he and Maxey finished tonight in double figures. Kyle, how do you look at it when you see Embiid getting that number? We talked about it before, escaping Washington with a 50-point night, but when we did that game that night and we did our post-game show, you pointed out, taking the other team lightly, number one, but also if you guys are not doing much on your side of things, the same thing can happen where he has to go out there and give a big-time night. Did you see it tonight where you needed every bit of that 40 because the others weren't doing anything? Or was it more of the ball was going to him, it was sticking too much, and it wasn't enough ball movement as we've seen over the last couple of weeks?
I'd say probably in the middle, but I'd lean more toward the rest of the guys let him down for most of that game. I mean, Tyrese Maxey had some awesome moments in that fourth quarter, but I thought for maybe the first 2.5 quarters, he was struggling to get around guys like Caruso. Now, in fairness, they have a lot of good point-of-attack defenders on that team between Caruso, I don't want to mispronounce his name.
Ayo Dosunmu.
I was about to really tongue-tie myself on that one, although he
had
a
vowels
bad
in there.
game. Javon Carter, certainly a good point-of-attack defender as well. So they were getting him to go east and west a lot. I thought he had some uncharacteristic turnovers. So when Maxey's struggling, and then I'm sure you guys probably crushed Tobias on the show if you have not, but Tobias just completely uninvolved, uninspired in that game. Like, comes out early in the game, puts Patrick Williams in the mid-post and bricks a shot, and that's like the extent of his aggression for the game. To come out of that game with 3 points it's hard to say, hey, it's Joel's fault that Tobias did basically nothing the entire night. So while there was some of that, jab step offense from Joel, I thought as time wore on, it was probably more a necessity than him freezing out his teammates.
I agree. It was more on the teammates, the supporting cast not getting it done. And to your point of Maxey finishing with 29, great rebound in the second half to get that high of double figures. But you brought up the defense from the perimeter guys in Chicago. We talked about it as well. And it's something that we're probably going to see in the postseason if we allow ourselves to look there. He did rebound, but were you a little bothered a little bit there in the beginning because of how they were defending him? He was a little less aggressive than we've seen before, attacking that type of defense in the past. Tonight it seemed to really bother him in those first 2 quarters.
Yeah, and look, whenever Tyrese has a slow start and then comes on at the end, he never gives the defense any credit on the other team. It's always, I got to be more aggressive. I'm looking to set guys up, this and that. And I get it. He always feels it's within him to have these types of runs. And there was definitely some, hey, I got to be the setup man mentality early. But look, this is a storyline we're going to be focusing on over the long term is what does Tyrese do against tough physical defense on the perimeter? Obviously, if he's hitting step-back threes, that doesn't really matter, right? That's kind of an unguardable shot. There's a reason that guys like Dame Lillard, James Harden, et cetera, have made that such an essential part of their game is because if you're good at that, that's basically unable to be stopped. The defenses can put whoever on you. They can play up on you as much as they want, but you're stepping, 6 feet back to take a jumper. It's not designed to be guardable. So, yeah, I do worry about these style of matchups for him. Not that Chicago is a world-beating team, but they have a bunch of guys they can throw at him to slow him down, and we're going to have to see how he deals with it over time.
What did you think of their overall defensive performance? They ended up obviously giving up, 12 made 3-pointers to the Bulls. They went a solid almost 2 quarters without forcing a turnover. What did you think of their night on defense?
So Nick talked about this. Nick Nurse. I always have to clarify that. I know it's Nico, but
I think we're pretty consistent in calling him Nico, so I think Nick can only be Nurse. I think it's fair.
Okay, that's fair. So I actually thought they came out strong on defense. I thought they were forcing Chicago into the shots that they probably wanted them to take. And I thought Joel Embiid in particular looked really good at the rim in the first, 5 to 10 minutes maybe of that game. Afterward, Tyrese got at this a little bit. I think their offensive struggles bled into the defense, right? Where when the other team's pulling the ball out of the basket over and over again, it's hard for them to get into their sets early, get cross matches and transition, so on and so forth. And so because the offense went off a cliff, I thought that there was a direct tie to the defense. I would also say, as good as Joel was for a lot of that game, I thought the foul trouble really messed with him on the defensive end specifically. I thought there were also some plays where he just didn't feel like closing out on Nick Vucevic and said, well, I'll live with if he's going to take a three or step into a mid-range jumper, whatever he's going to do. And I thought Vooch punished him a little bit in the last maybe quarter and a half of play. So Joel certainly got the better of that matchup overall, but I thought that was not a terrible job by him, but certainly below average job by him after what I thought was a really strong start.
Vucevic with a big three, too, in that late run that the Bulls had to really extend that lead, force a timeout by Nick Nurse. Since we talked about the struggles, a good night for us, Kyle. He doesn't even play, and a good night for us when you don't have Marcus Morris and nobody else can get shots off. It's a good night for our Marcus Morris side of things here.
The Morris hive is really just, we're killing
it's
it.
It's developing.
So I would, to that point, Devon, this is Kelly Oubre's worst game of the year, and I don't think it's even really close. Some of that is just he missed open shots. You can live with that, right? Like long season, guys are going to have games where, and he did hit one pretty important three late in the game on a cross-court pass from Joel out of a double team that looked like they were starting to build some momentum. Probably would have been pulled, obviously, if Nick Batum had been healthy enough to go at the end. So that played a part in it. But Derek and I actually were talking during the first half about there were some shots and some possessions where I thought it was the off-script, forced shot, bad, long two type of jumper that I'm sure Nick Nurse would discourage and other coaches have discouraged throughout his career. Like, those are the type of plays that you can't have happen. And so that we saw kind of the downside of Kelly Oubre, maybe the Kelly Oubre that Derek and I came into the season expecting. Now, obviously, it's only one game, and I think the body of work up to this point has been strong. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, say, tough night, but shake it off. So, yeah, when Kelly's having that type of night, not having Marcus and that scoring punch, or not having really any scoring punch off the bench for that matter, really came back to bite them.
Yeah, especially when Tobias is just present.
Oh, I mean, listen,
we don't get one of your legendary rants right there. 3 shots.
No,
tonight?
I don't have the energy to do it. Tobias, like the energy they gave is about what I have to offer on this podcast right now. But look, man, Tobias has got to do more than that. He's the third option on this team. There has to, I mean, even if he's got to be kind of a dick, right? Like, wave his hand to people, like, yo, give me the goddamn ball.
Yeah.
One of the most important people on this team. One of the most skilled players on the team, frankly, as much as we rag on him from time to time. Like, he's got a lot in the toolbox. So to be completely adrift to the point that you only have 3 points and you're totally uninvolved in the offense, that's what's unacceptable. Like, again, I can always live with Tobias goes 0 of 6 from 3, has a poor night shooting the basketball. We're still like, wow, that sucked. You're paying this guy however much money. But at least you're dying on the sword a little bit. It's like, I'm going to do what I can or try to do what I can to help out Joel, who's scoring another 40-point game, another 30-10 game, by the way. He continues breaking his own record each and every night now, which we'll see if that holds up against Minnesota on Wednesday. But for Tobias to not identify any period during this game that's like, I got to get going, man. I got to give this team something because our bench has nothing. Kelly's got nothing. Pat Bev's not giving you offense. Marcus is out. All that. Like, I don't know, man. You're this far into your career. The offense is your bread and butter, and that's what you have to offer. Like I don't really get it. I don't.
He had 3 shots and 1 3-point attempt in 31 minutes. Well, hopefully, maybe after you get some the Knicks roast pork in there, you can have the energy for that rant.
Hold on. Before you get to the Knicks roast pork, can I say this, though, with the 3 shots? 2 of them in the first quarter.
Oh, yeah. No.
So one shot in the entire
third, tried to get him a post up early. He had a good catch and shoot 3, and then he just disappeared. It was wild.
All right, now you can go ahead and talk about the food.
Well, no, we'll get to tomorrow. We'll get to the next.
Well, true.
So we're getting to I promise you that.
Final play. 2 questions. What did you think of the foul on Tobias and the final play?
So I didn't like the foul call, but also when they challenged it and I saw the replay, I was like, there's no way they're overturning that. It's just a classic. Like, if they had whatever they ruled, they were not going to overturn. And, those are the breaks of the game, whatever. DeRozan missed the first free throw, so gave them a chance to tie. Joel talked about the shot after the game. Well, I say kind of shot because that was pretty terrible. He said the execution was good. If he could have the play back, he said the ball slipped. He probably would have gone up and taken a normal jumper. He opted for sort of a push shot floater, said the ball came out of his hands, said taking that shot, run that play a million times, probably would take a step back or take a normal jumper on 99 other times. Didn't on that one. Said there was nothing really to it other than that. So, sometimes that's just how it goes. It's an 82-game season where you're going to have these moments. As good as Joel was in that game, he just didn't have one more make left in him, and it sucks. Like, it would have been nice to hit that, and we see what happens from there. But the good news is we didn't have to, as people who are working through past the end of the game, no overtime to pad the time that we have to stay up late tonight, fellas. We can all get in bed at a semi-reasonable hour and dream of some roast pork sandwiches.
Well, we've got
a football game, man.
As excited as I may have been, glancing over, got some TVs over there.
I was trying not to,
left,
and you're doing it.
Might be happening. But as much as I am looking to some of that roast pork, that is a little earlier of a start time than we are used to. So come check us out at 11:30. You can check us out in person, or you can tune in to the YouTubes
from your desk.
Hit the bell icon to get the notifications. We will be a little earlier than tomorrow. But Kyle, I don't think I have any more questions here for you.
No. Maybe did Tobias have the Jalen Hurts illness that made him play this bad tonight?
I don't know, because Tobias made a very quick exit, as I'm sure you would have.
I didn't know that. Didn't know that. All right, well, listen, man, let you get out of there, of course. And we'll, as Derek said, we'll be at the Reading Terminal tomorrow at 11:30. All 3 of us will be there, and we'll be talking about some food if Kyle gets all the food that he wants from Reading Terminal.
We are all getting all the food that we want tomorrow.
You got it.
I will
Thanks,
make sure
man.
of it.
We appreciate it. All right, we appreciate it. We thank everybody for checking in tonight. We hope you can check in with us tomorrow. I don't know what that yelling scream was about.
I don't know either. I was just pulling up NFL.com.
Yeah, it looks like it's still the Birds. Listen, we're not naive. We know the Birds are playing right now. It's 4th and 2 right now for Seattle on the Birds 30. A little play-by-play right there for everybody. The Birds, maybe an incomplete pass. Did they get a little turnover there? Or no, penalty. On James Bradbury. How about that? Penalty on James Bradbury. So I'm guessing it's going to be 1st and whatever, and inside the 30 or 20 there. And there's that. So we understand that the game is going on. We appreciate everybody for checking in. We know you're always with us. We do understand there's a big game going on at the moment, but hope that we can check in with you tomorrow. And we have a lot of people to thank. First of all, with all the people with the super chats, we appreciate everybody checking in, from Babajide, Furious, and Bernard, starting us off tonight. And plenty of people from Ian, Ramich, Marty, and who else we have here? We had Q, Sims, Vince getting in there. We also had James, and who else did we have here? We had mentioned Bernard already, not only Super Chat, but jumping in there in the chat in general. Furious Julian, X-Man, and Misremembered 72. So many of you. Barbara Carroll, 3-time. Keith, thank you all for checking in tonight. make sure you go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, tell a friend to tell the other friend, the next friend, the family, all going to be together around the holidays. You might as well tell them about the PHLY sports in general, and certainly PHLY Sixers podcast and postgame, as we do 5 times a week right here on this forum.
6 times sometimes. Last week we had a 6-game or 6-show week.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there you go. That's how it goes. Brianna, thank you so much as always producing. We thank Kyle for joining us live from the arena. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow, 11:30 from the Reading Terminal, and seeing all of you. Should be fun.
11:30 might be earlier than normal, but it means we get an early start to lunch as well.
Can we eat on the show?
I don't know if we can, but I will be.
Yes, we will.
We're in a market.
Well, we listen. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you tomorrow, 11:30 on the road, live from the Reading Terminal. Have a good night.
We all silly like the mayor.